Hello, I am Matt Russell and I would like to welcome you to the channel. In this video I am going to show you how we made some signs from an ash tree that had fallen over in my stepmom's yard in 2021 that we cut into some 3 1/4 inch slabs with a chainsaw mill, and a neighbor cut the remainder into 5/4 boards that we have now air dried to about 1 1/8 inches. I am also going to explain my saying, if you do the right thing, you don't have to worry about being wrong, and my philosophy around the saying. I work with our tools in a manner that I am comfortable with. Ensure you follow all safety instructions from the manufacturers of the tools that you use, as failure to do so could result in serious injury or death. This is a 12 1/2 inch wide 5/4 board that has been air dried for about 2.5 years. Here I am setting my match fit miter saw stop at 45 1/2 inches. I will have a future video on the shop furniture that was all made with our Legacy Maverick CNC, as well as this match fit miter saw stop. The remote in my hand activates the dust collection system. I cut the board into 2 pieces that gives me enough material for 12 signs. Here I am setting the fence on the bandsaw to 6 1/4 inches. The push block that I use is one we make out of scrap plywood when we are cutting with our CNC router. In this clip I am jointing one side of the board with our joiner planer combo. I have 1/4 inch dowel holes drilled with the CNC router so I can stack several pieces of plywood together to make as wide or as narrow a push block as I need for an application. I am only taking about 1/16 of an inch off at a time, as I want to keep the signs as thick as possible. The ash grain has a tendency to tear out, so I am checking the board to see if I need to reverse the direction of the cut on the grain. Here I am setting the fence on the bandsaw to 11/16 of an inch. I like to use the square on narrow pieces as it is easier to see than a ruler. After joining one side, I am resawing the board into 11/16 inch pieces for the sign and a 3/8 inch thick piece that will be used for our laser projects. I am using a Carter Accurite Greenwood bandsaw blade. It is 3/8 of an inch wide, 120 inches long, and has 3 teeth per inch. It is the second one we have purchased from Carter, and we were quite happy with the first one until I found a deck screw shaft in the 2x4 that I was cutting. It doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy when you hit a deck screw with a bandsaw and the blade snaps. One thing I have learned is that when resawing hard lumber, it is very important to let the bandsaw teeth do the work. If you push the wood too hard, the blade will heat up and go everywhere except where you want it to go. I am speeding up the resawing video for brevity. After resawing, I take the board back to the joiner planer combo and plane the bandsaw blade marks out. In this clip, I am placing the Legacy Smart Tool sensor on the T-Track spoil board. This process tells the CNC where the spoil board Z height is located at. I move the Smart Tool sensor to its home reference point and the machine touches off on the sensor so it knows the height of the spoil board. This process tells the CNC where the spoil board Z height is located at. In the Vectric Aspire file, I have set the Z0 as the top of the spoil board. Vectric Aspire is the program I use to create the G-code to control the Legacy CNC router. Here I manually jog the spindle away from the work area so that I can access the workpiece. Then I clamp one of the boards onto our Legacy Maverick CNC that we purchased back in 2019. It has a 4-foot by 8-foot bed, a turning station, and a vertical work holding station, and I have the optional vacuum table. In this video, I am just using the flat bed with the T-Track configuration. I hold the boards down on the bed with some improvised MDF blocks on the left side of the board that are cut at a 35-degree angle and Legacy's T-Track stop blocks on the right side. Here I am changing the 1/8 inch end mill out for the 60-degree V-bit. I also have to change out the collet because my V-bit has a 1/4 inch shaft and my 1/8 inch bit has an 1/8 inch shaft. Now the machine touches the V-bit off on the Smart Tool sensor, which tells the CNC where the end of the bit is. I have the dust collector door open so you can see what the bit is doing, and with my dust collection, it collects most of the fine particles of dust even with the door open. The skirt you see around the bristles of the dust collector shoe is there to keep my dust collector from sucking the bristles in the way of the bit and up into the dust port. This V-carve in real time took 18 minutes and 18 seconds, which is kind of interesting to me. I reprogrammed the toolpath to make the words slightly bigger and deeper. At the same time, I changed the toolpath feed speed from 100 inches per minute to 190 inches per minute in an attempt to speed up the cut time. These changes almost doubled the V-carve time from 9.5 minutes to 18 minutes and 18 seconds. It is a phenomenon that I have seen with our CNC router and with our laser engravers. Just because you speed up the toolpath doesn't necessarily mean you will reduce the cut time. The machine has to accelerate up to the program speed and then decelerate before coming to a corner or going around a corner. If the distance is smaller than the distance necessary to reach the program speed, the change in programming doesn't reduce the time it takes to make the cut. This V-carve process takes 18 minutes, so I'm going to speed up the video for brevity and explain my saying. If you do the right thing, you don't have to worry about being wrong. In my former career as a patrol sergeant with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, anytime I would take over a new squad, or anytime a new squad member would join our squad, I would go over a form with them that outlined the common mistakes that I had seen repeatedly over my career in an attempt to prevent similar mistakes in the future. As part of the form, I included the phrase, "If you do the right thing, you don't have to worry about being wrong." For me, the philosophy of, if you do the right thing, you don't have to worry about being wrong, was mostly an instruction to the squad to know their job to the best of their ability and to recognize that if there was a little voice inside their head telling them not to do something, it might be in their best interest if they listened to it. I was recently watching a YouTube video by Myron Golden where he was talking about the voice in your head that says, "Who is going to know?" is really Satan trying to lead you astray. Which had me thinking about how I think when someone tells me, "Who's gonna know?" It really reminded me of a hunting trip that I had taken shortly after I was promoted to sergeant. On my first day that year hunting archery season, I was lucky enough to harvest a 12-point buck. It was and still is the largest deer that I have ever harvested. The next day that I made it out to hunt for does only, as you only receive one buck tag for archery in New York, I was sitting in my stand and saw a larger 12-point buck walk right past me. It was pretty awesome, as while this huge buck was walking to my left, a little spike buck was walking to the right of me. I sat still and enjoyed watching both of them, and the thought of shooting this big buck without a tag never came to my mind. I decided that I wouldn't sit in this stand again until opening day of gun season, so I might get lucky again. On opening day of gun season, I like to be in my stand a bit before shooting light because as soon as it gets light, some hunters will shoot at almost anything. The area I was hunting had received a bit of rain and the ground around where my tree stand was somewhat flooded. I had to walk through calf-high water to get to my tree stand. So I'm up in my stand and I hear some sloshing around in the water. At first I think it is another hunter who is going to walk right under my stand. To my surprise, it was the huge 12-point buck that I had previously seen. Once again, it never crossed my mind to shoot the deer because it was not legal shooting light. After the buck walked by, I radioed my dad and let him know the deer was going in his direction, but he unfortunately never saw it. I have told several people this story over the years and am surprised at how many people would say, "Who would know?" My answer is that I would know, which was good enough for me at the time. In reflection, I also know that God would know. If more people thought this way, the world would be a better place. Trust me, in my life I haven't always followed this advice, but in retrospect, I sure wish I had. Back to the video. Here I am changing out the V-bit for a 1/8 inch end mill. I use a 1/8 inch end mill to drill the mounting holes and to complete the profile cut. This takes a little longer than a larger bit to cut the sign out, but it saves me the time of an extra tool change. When using T-track, I leave tabs on the profile cut to keep the part in place while the profile cut is being done, and do an 8/1000th offset on the last pass to get rid of the layer lines. The machine is now drilling the mounting holes. Where you hear the bit speed up is when I bump the speed up from 100 inches per minute to 190 inches per minute, as for some reason the controller defaults to 100 inches per minute even when I set it to 190 inches per minute in Aspire. Where you see the bit move up and down, the program is leaving a tab of material in the bottom of the profile cut that holds the part in place. As you can see in this part of the video, sometimes bits break. As you can see, I'm handling the bit with my bare hands now, and it is not hot. This is one benefit of a liquid-cooled spindle. Here I am changing out the broken bit for a fresh one. This is the amazing part about CNC routers. They can engrave text into a sign. Drill the mounting holes and cut a curved sign out almost as fast as it can cut a straight line. Here I manually jog the spindle away from the work area so that I can access the workpiece. After the part is done at the CNC, I remove it and cut the tabs with a utility knife. I used a 1/16 inch radius roundover bit with a brass bearing to remove the tabs and give the edge a slight roundover. In this clip I am trying a new technique for paint filling the V-carve. I had seen some videos of people using General Finishes milk paint to fill the V-carve as they could apply the milk paint without it bleeding into the grain. First I'm using shellac sealer to seal the grain so that the black paint when I fill in the V-carve doesn't bleed into the grain. Here I am applying the black paint into the V-carve. After applying the paint and letting it dry, I use a drum sander to remove the paint from the surface, leaving the paint in the V-carve. I sand up through the sanding grits from 80 to 220. I'm just showing one grit for brevity. I blow out the V-carve with an air compressor. I always enjoy watching the grain pop as I spray on a clear finish. Things that I learned from this project. The ash does not V-carve cleanly and leaves curls of wood at the edge of the inside of the V-carve. The ash looks better when it is cut out with the CNC router and then engraved with our X-Tool laser. Video forthcoming. I made some additional signs with the upcycled barn wood, which V-carves cleanly. Videotaping the process allows me to go back and review the process and see things that I miss when I am performing the process. It also allows me to check the timestamps on the video and see how long the process actually takes, and whether or not speeding the feed speeds up actually reduces the process time. It is awesome to have taken this ash tree that would have rotted away in the woods or been used as firewood and make it into signs. I look forward to bringing you more useful content in the future. Please like and subscribe. If you have found this content useful and think it may be helpful to somebody else, please share. Have a wonderful day and do the right thing so you don't have to worry about being wrong.